At 7:50, policy meeting of September 21st, 2023. Roll call.
Mr. Pate, Ms. Elmore Perkins,
Here.
Ms. Howard,
Here.
Ms. Jordan,
Here.
Ms. McCray,
Here.
Mr. Mosby,
Here.
Ms. McDaniel.
Ms. McDaniel?
Yes.
Margaret, do you need all of us to cut on myself?
I think so.
I think so.
Margaret, do you need everybody to turn on their mics?
Yeah.
That was such a sweet, yes, I guess.
Well, you know something.
Are we diving into Christina?
Yeah, let me get her phone. She didn't answer before when Jonas was doing a test. You're all fiction, of course. You haven't seen it yet. Maybe one of these. Okay. Hi, Christina. Hello. You are on, yeah, you are on call, speakerphone. We just took roll call.
I forget.
So we have Christina Dupay in the meeting via phone conference. Okay, any public comments?
Yeah, I have one. I'm a new great-grandmother.
Congratulations.
Monday, the 18th. Little boy, 6 pounds, 2 ounces, 19 and a half inches long. Oliver James.
Congratulations.
Arrived in Missoula, Montana.
Okay,
I'd like to say happy birthday to Mrs. McDowell and Mrs. McCray.
okay.
Carmi, do you guys need an extra copy? I can share with Dr. Patterson.
Did you need a copy?
Ms. McDaniel, does she not have hers?
I'll follow you up.
Margaret said she didn't have hers. You want an extra copy of the agenda?
Here, I can share with Erica.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, policy, board policy for review. First policy that we have on the agenda is policy 2:90, anti-nepotism.
Good.
Okay, so, Dr. Curry, when did we send out the policies? It's been a minute.
Well, they came out before the 6th, because we had a meeting scheduled on the
Turn
6th.
that on.
No, I don't even have it on. Okay, so the policies were sent out at the beginning of the month and we had to cancel our meeting. So, for the policies, what I did is I had some questions, and some concerns about a few of the policies. I brought them to the attention of the interim superintendent. And from there, we went through and I just had questions, some things that needed to be updated, possibly changed, and up for discussion. And I don't know why right now I'm not seeing, Margaret, can I just look at yours for just a second? Because I'm not seeing my 2.90. So for anti-nepotism, there were some things that I thought should go in, some changes, possible changes to be made to the policy. Ms. Jordan? Ms. Jordan?
I'm listening.
Could you do me a favor and read what's in red? For some reason, I don't have mine on my,
You want mine?
I can't read it. I don't even have my
Okay,
glasses.
board member relationships before the Board of Education votes on any employment decisions affecting a board member's immediate family member. The board member shall publicly disclose such relationship and then abstain from such vote. Board members should disclose and abstain from voting on employment decisions that do not involve immediate family members. If such relationships will raise questions about the fairness or impartiality of that board member or the board, or be deemed to constitute a breach of the public trust. Immediate family members include parents, spouses, siblings, children, grandparents, grandchildren, parents-in-law, siblings-in-law, civil union / domestic partners, and legal guardians. Board decisions include, but are not limited to hiring, promoting, transferring, reappointing, evaluating, awarding salary, to the discipline of terminating employees. Just number one?
Oh,
Yes.
there it is. So, did anyone have any questions or concerns about what the policy is stating, what we're looking to do moving forward, adding just some of those additional items and clarifying exactly what board members should or should not be doing when it comes to voting and relatives, immediate family members?
I really think that's unnecessary, because I think if we want to improve public trust and transparency, we should just have put in our policy that we will not hire immediate family members, period. And then it doesn't call for all this. Our policy right now basically states the same thing that that's saying right now, pretty much, that every board member knows that they can't vote on if a family member comes up. The only thing that wasn't in the policy is that you have to disclose the relationship. Pretty much everybody knows what it is. And I think if we really wanted to, like I said, give the public the trust that they need in the school district, then we just have an anti-nepotism policy, where we don't hire family members. Just bottom line. You know, because anytime, even if you vote on them, and that board member doesn't vote, public gonna say, well, they only voted because that was board member relative. Okay, that's gonna be the same perception as that if they wasn't a relative, they wouldn't have got the job. So if we want to, you know, have complete transparency and public trust, you know, let's just have, first motion that I voted on when I became an alderman in the city of Chicago Heights was the anti-nepotism policy. We couldn't hire any family members.
So,
They could not work for the city of Chicago Heights. And it was just, you know, and, you know, there's, you know, other things they can do, but, you know, sometimes you lose good people, but if we're talking about public trust and transparency, I think that's the best way to go, instead of just trying to say you don't vote, because people, they're still gonna say, oh, that was Mr. Mosby, Mr. Mosby's niece, they just voted for me because that was his niece or something, or that was his wife, or, you know, and so, that's just me. If we're really trying to do something that really just show the public that we're really trying to be transparent and improve our public trust.
okay. Anyone else?
Well, we used to have in our policy that it said that board members or administrators would disclose at the time of the hiring or prior to the recommendation for hire or the motion that they were a family member. Didn't we used to have that policy?
It was taken out at some
Disclose it?
point.
Huh?
It was taken out at some point. It doesn't read that way now, and that's what the introduction of this kind of was, is that we, you know, the disclosure is there, that we find out that, yes, this person is, and it also helps with placement, making sure that someone is not placed under the supervision of a relative if that administrator happens to be a building principal, making sure that their relative doesn't end up in their building in a position. So that disclosure helps with that. Without it, we really wouldn't know if we were violating that portion of the policy. Dr. DuPay?
Yeah, I'm here. I had a little bit of trouble with hearing after Mr. Mosby spoke. But my thought on it is I like the part about the disclosure of who is his family. Because, as I said before, you don't always know who's related to who. And just because someone abstains, that doesn't mean that they're abstaining because it's a family member on the agenda for hire. There could be other reasons for abstention. So I think it's important in the transparency that we do have that disclosed and that we are aware of when family is being hired, just for the sake of transparency.
Anyone else?
So, once again,
I would agree with Dr. DuPay. I think it's imperative that we look at the best person for the job, whether it's a relative or not. If you disclose that information, I think that's important to do so. But to say not to hire that person because that person is a relative of yours, no. It's important, because a lot of that's been going on for quite some time. So I think it's important to disclose that information. And people are gonna talk your way. But I think right now, the best person for the position, whether it's an employee or not. That person shouldn't be penalized because they're related to a board member. I mean, because if you think about it, here, we got a lot of staff members that got a lot of family members here. That's not even on the board. So what are we saying?
yeah, but the problem here is that, okay, you know, this thing came up from the potential hiring of my wife.
True.
And so now you want to turn around and switch it. She was the most qualified candidate for that position. And bottom line is that the only reason that she was not voted for because she was my wife.
Well,
But no, you see, but so if we want to really improve transparency and public trust, let's go all the way. Because what you're doing is that's the same policy we got to disclose it. I mean, that's, you know, it's like, it's not a big secret that who's who. And so just to pull it, that's not improving public trust and transparency. So you can sugarcoat, you know, all you want to, but that's not. And so if you're gonna do it right. Go all the way and make it, then the public will have trust in this board. Because bottom line is, if you did it to one person, we can do it to everybody. We're not gonna hire nobody's family member. Because of the fact that, you know, because that was the only reason, you can't tell me whether there's another reason. She, you know, impeccable qualification for the job.
Dr. Patterson?
Well, one of the things I was looking at, there are a couple of things. I am concerned because there's a teacher shortage. And we are just shortage across the board in lots of different fields. So I hate that we would close off our options of finding great candidates. So that's one thing. The other thing is I like the whole disclosure part and being consistent with the disclosure part. I think that piece is important. The other piece that I have some concerns about the language is that we've excluded some things that were in the current language and included other things. Like there's a list of people that would be considered close relatives and then they're not included. So that would be just a consideration.
When you're looking at immediate family,
Yes, immediate family.
which,
So I saw that excluded, we left out niece, nephew, and cousin, but you included grandchildren, parents-in-law, siblings-in-law, civic union, domestic partner. So just either including them or not including them.
Hasn't there always been a,
Joyce, you're gonna have to use your mic so Christine can hear you.
hasn't there, hasn't there always, hasn't there always been a,
Anybody?
You still can't hear?
No, I can hear now. There was just a lull, but I had another comment that I wanted to make. I just didn't know if anyone was talking and I just couldn't hear them.
Joyce was trying to turn her mic on.
Oh, okay.
Hasn't there always been a law in the code or that if the person is immediate family and living with the board member,
That's it.
and the board member, you know, and the, something about
Interest.
the interest, you know, supporting that person, that person then should be restricted from working in the school district. Am I
Right.
correct with that? And yes or no?
No,
It's not in code?
no, they just.
They just
you
can't
can't vote
The
for
only
them.
thing is you can't vote for them.
Right.
So
You
that's
can't.
why, that's why I see this total hypocrisy in
You have
its
to have
addendum,
stay.
is because it's not doing anything. It's not solving the problem.
I thought there was a little more to it about them living in your household. But I think we could consult the attorney about that.
Dr. Dupay, you had another comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, when Mr. Mosby brought up the hiring of his wife, that she was related to him had no bearing on my vote. What had bearing on my vote was the inconsistencies of what board members were told regarding the hiring that made me hesitant to vote in the affirmative for it. And prior to any of that, nepotism policy had been a concern of mine that was brought up before. It was erroneously stated, not by anybody during this meeting or on the board, that I helped shape it, or I voted for the last nepotism policy, but that was done before I was elected in 2019. And I thought there was still some more tweaking that needed to be done. And I do know that there are instances where, like I said, we are hiring people and we don't know that there's a relation to anybody on the board. And that comes out way later. I just think that if anything, we, number one, need to follow our policies, especially regarding the hiring, but also add in that it needs to be disclosed so that the board is aware. And that just comes with greater transparency, not just for the board in general, but also the community, so that if there's any, like, out for, oh, they're just hiring, this person just got their job because they're related to so-and-so on the board or something like that.
They'll say that anyway.
That is something we can immediately squash because that's not the case. And I don't believe that we should ban family members from being hired by the district. But it should be, like Mr. Mosby said, it should be the best qualified for the position. It's just, like I said, if there's anything in it that makes me kind of go, wait, this doesn't sound right, what's going on? I can't vote for it. I can't vote positively for it. And that's where my whole thing is regarding that. I want to make sure that full disclosure, all board members have the same information going into it, and that we know firmly this is the best candidate, and it's not because of someone's relationship to anyone that a person is getting a position.
Ms. Howard?
Well,
I call him.
what I believe is the best candidate for the job. I mean, all of these restrictions is like, we need people, so it's,
She didn't have a microphone.
my microphone is not on?
It's not in the right place.
Okay. I'm sorry. We need a lot of teachers, bottom line. And my thing is, we should just make sure that we in transparency. I mean, to me, what if you refer somebody, you know, and it's not a family member, where that stands? You know, that's my opinion about it. I mean, I know you guys didn't say nothing about that. And they get hired. So it's like, okay, well, if you're advertising and you tell people about it, and they qualify, then what? But they're not relatives, but they know somebody on the board. I'm just saying, there's so much ways, so many ways you can think, you know, so many ways you can go with this. Bottom line is, we need teachers. And I believe that our board is strong enough to make sure that they govern themselves and work in transparency. And, you know, just be honest. You know, that's about it. We need people. We need teachers. Okay, that's bottom line. That's my opinion.
Madam Chairwoman?
Wait, let's let everybody have their first turn first.
If you don't mind to speak. I didn't know if you're trying to speak.
Okay, I just wanted to check with everybody, because, I mean, this is something that is personal for all of us, because we're talking about us and our relatives, so I would like to.
And I'm just trying to make some clarification on what I'm saying. Basically, as I'm saying is, we have a policy already that addresses everything that we're talking about. Okay, bottom line is that we know that we should tell who is, if it's a family member who's being considered for a position, everyone knows. We talk about that they should, you know, this is my family member. I think we addressed that in the prior board because of the situation. What I'm saying is just to change it just for the heck of it, we're not putting any more teeth in it than it's in it already. And then as Dr. Patterson already stated, is that we're eliminating people that probably should be included, trying to telemate. So when you're talking about transparency, when you're talking about public trust, we need to be doing something that's going to cause transparency and public trust. Bottom line is that this is not going to cause it, because bottom line is if we're still hiring family members, why change the policy to change it, put a couple words in there that the policy already addressed? Everyone knows the policy addresses it. If a family member is up for a position, you can't vote on them. Wife, son, daughter, sister, you know, people, definitely as Dr. Carmen said, anyone who's living in your household, you can't vote on it.
Yeah.
Bottom line is that we already know that. So I don't understand what the changes are about. If we want to improve public transparency and public opinion, we have we want to change it.
Yeah.
We're not hiring family members. And then this is not going to improve transparency and public opinion. Because guess what? I don't care who it is. It could be Mr. Perkins. We give him a new job. They ain't gave it to him because he missed Kim. They're gonna say it anyway.
Yeah, it's coming out.
It's not gonna change that people are saying we're hiring because they're family members. And that's all I'm saying. We come up with some stuff just to do stuff. That's not what we're about. Because the policy that we have addresses everything that we need to address right now.
Okay, Ms. McCray,
What happens if someone,
go through your mic. It's not picking up.
what happens if someone doesn't follow the rules? Then what?
As far as,
If somebody hires somebody's, family member, if the district hires somebody's family member, what would be the, consequences or whatever?
well, the way I was looking at it, I was gonna wait for everybody to finish, but the way I'm looking at it is that the employee, the potential new hire, would also have to divulge themselves by filling out a form acknowledging relationship or not. And usually when those type of forms are passed out, there's a consequence, there are consequences up to termination. And those are usually the legal words when companies do allow, relatives to be hired. That is put in so that the employee is actually filling out the form as well. And they understand with anything else, if there's any type of perjury, there are consequences that are gonna be had, and it can be up to the termination of your position.
But that kind of seems unfair, because what if they don't even know?
If you don't know.
Situation happens that you might be related to somebody and not even know it, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I
So-
mean, if that's the case, that's something different, but when you're talking about, you're saying, I acknowledge. If at that time you don't know that, because Mr. Mosby has 159
6 degrees
cousins,
of separation.
you got 59
Every sick person
cousins,
comes
and you
to a
haven't
wedding.
met them,
you know, your third cousin's child or something like that. You haven't met them. If you don't know at the time and you find out through a conversation one day that you're related, that's something different than, I know this is my uncle and I'm gonna pretend like I don't know it.
It's the same thing.
Case in point.
I'm
reading something, I'd like to read something to you that comes from the Illinois Council of School Attorneys. Before adopting an anti-nepotism or no spouse policy, a board should carefully analyze benefit versus harm. Among the potential harms are that such a policy could reduce the applicant pool, be difficult to apply, prevent hiring of the most capable applicant if he or she is in a prohibited relationship, and burden future boards with a policy that is difficult to delete or dilute. Potential benefits include protecting the district against favoritism, preventing fellow board members from feeling pressured, and adding credibility to the hiring process. Selecting job candidates based on merit is itself a powerful deterrent to nepotism. Adhering to the principle that the most qualified candidate will be selected also avoids the pitfalls of an anti-nepotism policy.
Ms. McDaniel?
I feel that we have to be very careful about discriminating just because someone is related to a board member. And if there is no financial connection between the employee, new hire, and the board member, then there should not be any reason why, if they are the most qualified and they are not under the supervision of the board member, which it wouldn't be, then there's no reason why they shouldn't be hired. I would hate to think that my granddaughter, who had an excellent qualification, could not serve her local school district because my own daughter gave birth to her, even though she has no financial relationship to me.
I have a question. What are other school districts like? Do they have anti-nepotism policies? I'm in the middle. I can see both sides, so, especially in because the situation of the shortage of, not just teachers, but teachers and other,
Professionals.
yeah, so I get that.
Let me make my point clear, okay? I'm fine, I'm fine with hiring family members, okay? But if we talked about, this here has been brought up on the premises, and we're trying to improve public trust and transparency. Okay, what we have already, if we don't have the public trust and transparency, what we have already, what's changing a couple words gonna do? They're still gonna say they're hiring because they're relative. That's gonna be public perception. I don't care what we do. Anytime we hire a family member, they don't, like I said, it doesn't have to be any financial connection, anything, because they're related to a member of the board, there's gonna be a public perception that they only got their job because of their affiliation. Mr. Gary, what would you say?
Not on the board.
Meeting,
I'm just asking for the public's opinion right now. They're here.
so,
But see, I'm done saying. And so that's what my issue is, not the change in the policy. I think the policy we have is fine. But when you come and say you want to change the policy and improve public perception and transparency, well, do something that wants to improve it,
well, I
okay?
mean, the form is another step that says, we are telling. And I think it was
Ms. Jordan had said, sometimes you don't even know it until after the vote,
You know, but,
because it's not divulged beforehand.
but us as elected public officials, we should all know that our policy says that we have to, or we know that we need to disclose a person, our family member who's hiring for a job, being considered as a candidate, that everybody should know who that person is. Okay? Everyone in their mother knew that Belinda Mosby was Baltimore resort.
But that's
I'm
not
just,
the
I'm
same,
just,
yeah.
no, I'm just saying.
Okay, so-
And so, even if we were separated and living in two separate households, that was Mrs. Mosby's wife, that's the only reason she got the job.
So, okay, now I'm
And
gonna have.
that's all I'm saying. If we give Mr. Perkins you know, make him, you know,
Godfather.
yeah, whatever, yeah. Bottom line is people gonna say they only got that because of Kim. If we move Peggy from Mohawk and put her in Michelle Obama or something, oh, she only got that promotion because she's Miss Man. That's gonna be public perception. It doesn't have to be true, but that's just the perception of the public. And so I'm just trying to say, if you put something together and you say what you're trying to change is public perception and transparency, it needs to really have some teeth in it.
Okay, so, now, my turn.
Okay, I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna cut my mic off.
No, listen, I want you to hear this. From being in the meetings, looking out as a community member at the meetings, listening to the conversations that were had about nepotism, hiring family, disclosure. This was one of my things. It's like, you know, who do we know? How do you know? People were finding out at the meeting that this person is related to. So the ideal of the form was the biggest thing, that the employee is divulging that they are related, and that the board member is doing it too. The employee is doing it prior to anything coming to the board, and not necessarily doing it at first interview, but if this person's called back for a second interview, you're looking to make an offer, this form is then given to say, hey, you know, you're here for the second interview, so forth and so on. We do need this form filled out for acknowledgement of relationship to a board member. Someone said, what about friends? That is not under anything that is legal with labor laws, so that's why it really wouldn't go with our policy, because it's not anything in the national law that talks about friends. Honestly, my first opinion, and the only reason that I even went this far and not ask about a non-nepotism policy, was because of the conversation that you guys had in the meeting when this was brought up before. And everybody, you know, was for it, so it's like, you know, how can we just put a little something extra in here to say this is forthcoming, we've taken one step more, just disclosing to the board, to the hiring staff, that this person has a relationship. My personal feeling is the same as yours, because that's all I heard from the galley when I was sitting there. So what you're saying, I agree with 100%. That would have been my choice, and it can be put up as a choice. Now we're gonna take consensus on all of these, and if you want to make a motion that that's the way you wanna go, it can happen and it can be voted on. So, there you have it, that's all of the discussion for this.
I'm just saying that, just say we need to change our policy to address some issues. Don't say we're trying to, improve transparency and public opinion, because.
I'm not trying to change
No, I'm not-
public opinion.
I'm not, I'm listening to that, but, because what we're doing is nothing new. And I'm fine with it. I
It
mean,
adds an extra layer, it does add an extra layer. People are gonna say what they're gonna say, but if you've got somebody signing off on a disclosure, and you know there's a consequence if there's a consequence attached to the person, if you don't disclose this, we don't know about it ahead of time, there is that consequence.
I don't think anyone up here, my brothers will come apply and don't say they related to me. Not this seven here.
That what?
This seven here is not gonna have a family member come apply for a job, and we don't say we're related.
We won't say it?
That we won't
Oh, well, we won't divulge.
that person is related to me.
From the conversation I heard, at some point that did happen,
Well,
but I'm not sure what it was.
I think the person that got hired when they were talking about that was the summer employees.
An employee is an employee though.
We don't vet some employees, part-time, student workers, that we hire family and friends and kids and stuff. We don't,
Why?
because we don't vet them like that.
Policy doesn't say that we shouldn't.
Well, we've never.
I think that if a
That
relative
goes
is
to
hired,
the trust though.
they need to be twice removed from the level of supervision of the
Yes.
board member. Because I would just say honestly, I don't want to be the supervisor of a board member's relative.
That's true as well. I mean, and that goes with nepotism, the part of nepotism as well. And I actually worked in a situation like that. My supervisor was engaged to her supervisor. So I've got the assistant who was marrying the director, and her supervisor was stuck in the middle. And we're sitting there, her husband, fiance, they would come in, lock themselves in the office, and you could hear everything going on, but who's gonna go tell that it was happening? I'm not gonna go tell my supervisor that her boss and her underling are in the office. Right, and it's me and one other person on duty, so, that is a point that it does bring that,
We go.
So, everybody kind of has heard everybody else's opinion on it, and then we'll take consensus. Why is this not moving? So, Mr. Mosley, you don't have yours, I was gonna ask what's next
No.
on the agenda. Okay, here's my agenda. Next policy, is basically,
Were we making a recommendation on this or taking consensus or anything?
are we gonna we take consensus now after each one, or at the end? Okay, so, let's call for consensus for policy 2:90, anti-nepotism.
So what are our options? Our options are that, what I've heard is that there is no hiring of any family member. And then I've heard that there is hiring if they are the best candidate and that if they are disclosed to the board or to the
Right, and
public.
actually, disclosure is the next one, and I kind of jumped ahead. The next one was the e-policy with the form that showed what how a potential
But I
hire
think
would fill out.
I think they're connected. I think we vote to no, it's not happening, or yes, it's happening with
With
there's
change.
three options. We leave it alone the way it is.
Yeah, yeah.
We vote for it with the disclosure, or we have zero immediate relative of a board member.
Okay,
Those are the three options?
those are the three options.
Actually,
Okay. No, you don't need to make another option.
no, but the policy that we're gonna be talking about does not have the disclosure in that policy.
I understand,
It's
but
another policy.
somebody may not want to vote for this policy unless they know there's going to be a disclosure.
Right, but, so you,
So to get consensus, I
Okay.
think we just need to know what people's perspective is. And then we can just move on to the next policy quickly.
So go over the
So option A is no family members of
Option
board
A,
members.
I'm gonna repeat it for Christina to make sure she's hearing it.
Oh.
Option A,
there's no changes.
no nepotism, an anti-nepotism policy, basically. Option B,
Option B is that we hire the best candidate, and if that candidate is a board member's relative, it must be disclosed.
okay, hiring the best candidate with disclosure.
And option C is just keep the current policy as it is.
Option C, stay with current policy.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mrs. Radican, if we can have a roll call.
Ms. McCray?
Could you come back to,
Everybody's gonna say that.
I'm not.
Only because it's your birthday. She wants to come back.
Mr. Mosby?
C, no changes.
Ms. Jordan?
C, no changes.
Ms. Dupay?
Hey, with notification. So basically, my understanding is that no changes, except the only changes, the board is notified. Correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's what I would like to be notified.
Ms. Howard?
C, no change.
Ms. Elmore Perkins?
B, that, the acknowledgement of relationship.
Ms. McCray?
Notification.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't.
I would say, disclosure, but I also think it depends on the climate, because if the situations were different and we weren't in such a dire need for teachers and staff, I would say that we shouldn't be able to hire family. But because the situation is what it is, I think we should take everybody into consideration. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to do what's in the best interest of the students of the district. But at the same time, we do need to let the community know that we not, just everybody, family and friends can come get a job here. Although the anti-nepotism doesn't take into consideration friends. So, yeah, whichever one was with
I think she's saying B.
I think you're saying that.
Okay, thank you.
And I just wanna say something.
I think she was saying C.
Be quiet. There was something that Ms. McCray did just say that I thought about, and I forgot to mention it. One of my other reasons, really looking at this policy and wanting to put something out with a little more transparency, some kind of a bite to it, is look at what happened at our meeting. Board members were attacked about something their family members did or did not do. And that became a public policy, and now, your family members are dragged into a situation that should never happen. And it was ugly. And if there aren't relatives, you bring in things home, coming home when something doesn't go right. And that's the other side of it that take into consideration as well. How it would affect the family members that are working if a board member is on a side of something that they don't believe in. Board decides to do something as a vote, and collective bargaining is like, oh, they're mad at us, so now the relatives feel the brunt of that as well. So that is one of the other real considerations, in addition to public trust, that I had for kind of looking at this policy.
Madam Chair, with all due respect.
Well, we're in the midst.
Yes, I know, but I'm just saying,
I know.
that is a real
We're in the
problem.
midst of voting
So,
of consensus.
it's my meeting today, so. So, thank you for just letting me kind of divulge that, because that to me was an important situation that, that people were put in.
You're always gonna be in the hot seat.
Well, but now you're looking at family members being in the hot seat, and it brings up a whole nother level.
What's the vote, you guys?
So now,
Ms. McDaniel?
Ms. McDaniel, no, we have two more.
Two more?
Dr. Patterson And
Those
it's not,
two are also on this
they're a part of our
committee.
committee. So we're gonna go that way and then go back to the president, and it actually should have been you
B.
before me.
B,
Mhm.
Yes.
that's
See,
Ms. Bell? Joyce on the committee? Yeah, that's what I thought.
oh, she's on the
Excuse me.
She said no. No, the superintendent doesn't get a vote. Ms. McDaniel?
Two, I mean, B.
Did we get a vote from Ms. Howard?
We did,
We did, okay.
yes.
Oh, C, yes.
We got everyone.
Okay, what did we come up with?
Split-
Well, we
it's a split
have-
decision.
5 Cs, 4 Bs,
Seven.
Yeah. Yep, that's it. Okay, so
so we've got, the Cs are,
the C has the
Yeah.
consensus.
it was a 5 to 4.
So no recommendation from the superintendent?
So what was it?
This is C is no changes. It stays, the policy stays the same.
No changes to disclosure.
Keep it.
It's still, that's what we said, C is no changes with disclosure. We still disclose that there was family members.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, so,
Where does it say disclosure?
Madam Chair, I think I might have, if C is no changes to the current policies, and the only change is that we disclose, the disclosure, I thought that was B.
I thought that was B as well, and C was no changes at all.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
Kill him. That's
Joyce,
correct.
on the bottom, number 2, we're talking about disclosure.
C was with disclosure because disclosure is the next policy that we're moving to.
Okay, let's move on. The next one is just the form.
Is
Right,
that,
and that's
that's
the
a
one we-
form, that's
It's
not
a
a
form.
policy.
That's not a policy, it's just a form. It's a, you know,
Yeah, but that's what but that was, this disclosure form was, we wanted the form.
Oh, okay.
We want the
Yeah,
form.
I did want the
We
form.
want the form. We just don't feel that we need to change the policy. We just add the form to it.
I didn't know that that's what it was. Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, we wanted the disclosure form.
C
Because
and then the
once again,
form.
we want
All right.
transparency, we want everyone to.
okay, so no changes to
The policy,
the
but.
policy,
I'm good with that.
have
and
the
now
disclosure.
when we vote on the
No
form,
changes to
Right.
the policy, they're just voting to have a disclosure on this form.
I see that, but I guess I don't know that I think that this is part of the policy. This looks like an administrative procedure.
it's an
It
exhibit,
is.
yeah.
It's an
It is
We don't vote on
administrative
procedure.
procedure, and it's not a part of the policy. It doesn't say
No, it's
anywhere
not a
in
part
this
of policy.
that
It's an-
that
it's an
this
ex-
is necessary.
So there just needs to be, there should be a,
I agree.
You don't hear me?
Yes, you're on mic.
So we should go home.
There's nothing in this policy.
I tried to
Yes,
get
it
y'all
says-
to, did I say this going on?
there's nothing in the, there's nothing in the policy that
There's
says
nothing in the
policy
policy that says that this administrative procedure
will be
should be
disclosed.
Such
required.
recipients
Somebody
in
put
writing
that
names
there.
of job, any immediate family members who are employed by the district, and return the form prior to the first regular board meeting of the new term.
Where is that?
Where do
The
you read?
bottom part 2,
We never read that part out loud.
We still do, not out loud. we do.
Well, basically what we're saying is that we
The
only
policy,
wanted,
everybody's got the policy in
out
front
of
of
the
them.
changes here,
No, we're not.
the only
doing
thing we wanted out of there was the disclosure form.
Right.
But
As
where
policy.
does it say that there is
But I'm
going to be a
saying-
disclosure?
Doesn't it say in the,
In part two.
in part two of the, we just wanted
If
that
you look
part.
in the red part, there's one and two.
Yeah, but isn't that what you wrote?
That's,
Yeah,
that's
but we
the
want that,
added
we
part
wanted that
Oh,
part.
you're gonna add what
Add
you
that
wrote.
to current
to
policy.
the current
yes.
policy,
Well,
so,
they never voted for that, they said no, there's 5 no's.
no.
They said no.
They said-
They don't want the form.
No, they
They
don't
don't
want
want any
that part
change.
2
No
added.
changes.
No,
No
we said with the
changes.
disclosure, that's what it was. What?
That's the
We said
disclosure.
with the disclosure.
That was B.
That was B.
That
See,
B was
we
the
said- we said
disclosure.
C
B
with the
was a
disclosure.
disclosure, but
But I
you only
got
got
C
4
in
votes for B.
C was
Yeah,
Right,
we
so
said,
C
we
is
said
no-
C with the disclosure, that's what our
C
vote was.
was with no change.
So you were really voting for me.
So you were really voting for B.
Huh?
If it's- Yeah.
Yeah.
if it's-
No,
No,
B,
because the
no.
jargon, we wasn't voting for the jargon on top.
That's what I understood, it was B.
He wrote,
B was with change, okay, the way you stated it, you said 1 was no nepotism policy at all.
Correct.
2 was the
Higher
changes with
Disclosure.
with disclosure, and you said C was no changes at all.
correct, and there were 5.
So somebody put an option D in there, which is keep it the same and add the disclosure.
Well, that's
Oh, I
what
didn't
B
know we
was.
had a B.
He didn't do it, but
I just added to
he
C.
ended up making another category.
I just added it to C.
Yeah,
The
he
C
just,
was with no
so that
change.
makes it a D.
It was with no changes to the policy, but add the disclosure. That
Yeah.
changed the
Yeah,
policy,
but-
because the language in the top will
It
change
wasn't
the
the
policy.
bus of C.
Adding an addendum of the
When I
disclosure would
stated
change the
C, I
policy.
said
Just
no
add that.
change.
Just add that.
So everybody who said that they
Because
wanted
that's
the
what I was
policy
told.
with the disclosure, that actually made another category, it ends up being another category.
No,
It
that's B.
wasn't, that's what B was.
No, B was the whole policy.
B was the
No,
whole change of the policy.
But the
Old
but the
policy.
disclosure,
It was not what you wrote, the policy as it was. B was the policy as it was, but with disclosure.
Disclosure.
yeah,
That's what I was,
Yeah,
that's what
that's
I
what I
wrote.
voted
There's a lot of change in the policy on that.
no, there's
No.
no
And that-
change in that
and that
policy.
Joyce is saying B was what you said.
Walter,
Yes.
there's no change in that policy until it's adopted by the board.
Yeah.
What Kim wrote here is not part of the policy.
Yeah.
Those
What's
are
up here
suggestions.
is the policy.
Right.
We wanted
And
what
that
was
was
written in
C,
the policy,
without no
but we
change.
wanted
No
the.
changes.
That was B.
Okay, you know
That was
what,
B.
let's go back
let's vote.
and say what you want, no A, B,
Yes.
or C, say what you want.
I'm going
Okay.
back.
No changes.
Yeah.
I can
Why? They already said, they
He
already.
already, I agree.
But with disclosure, they have included
The disclosure work.
But everybody
it's C.
didn't vote that way. Some
That's
people
C.
just said no changes, period.
Right,
So which one is that?
We should do it again.
that was C, but then Walter said, but add the disclosure.
That
should
wasn't
vote
C
one
That
more
though,
was B.
but that wasn't C.
B is going with all of the changes.
No,
Yes,
Let's
it
vote
was,
one more
Martha.
B is the best candidate, but with disclosure.
Let's vote again.
Okay,
So we
That
can
here's what we're gonna do.
So then, okay.
No.
So we're saying none of that was part of B to either. That's what I'm saying now, right?
Okay, here's what it is. A,
I'm going on.
A will be no nepotism policy at all, an anti-nepotism policy. There will be no nepotism.
No, okay.
That is A.
I mean, we really.
B is going to be, let me
That's
finish,
fine.
guys, so we can go forward.
Yes.
B will be accepting the policy with the changes in red.
Oh, no.
That is all of the changes in red.
Okay.
That will be B.
That wasn't
See,
what we voted before.
Margaret, we're doing it different now, because everybody is confused. C, you did it. C will be keep the policy as it is, nothing changes, nothing. And D will be keep the policy wording and add the acknowledgement form.
Section 2 of.
Section 2 in the red. So section 1 is not even in this at all. So X out 1. So we have an anti-nepotism policy. We have the policy to stay exactly as it is.
Well, now you're changing
I mean,
the ordinance to the way.
The second one is going to be
All,
the policy,
all changes.
with all the changes. Anti-nepotism, all of the changes. The next one is policy wording stays the same, add,
No, nothing.
nothing,
No changes.
no changes at all, and the last one is adding the form. The last one is, so, let's just do it this way. Who all is in favor of keeping it the same and adding the form to the end?
No.
All in favor, raise your hand for adding the
I don't want
acknowledgement
the
form.
I just want the language, because the form is an
I'm in
administrative
favor of
policy.
adding the acknowledgement form.
So the,
Form, so, okay.
can I say one thing?
Mhm.
The form is actually an administrative policy.
That's
It
right.
shows
Correct.
what we're
It's
supposed to do.
It's an administrative
Straight up
procedure.
procedure, it tells what we do.
Right.
So the language just needs to say that you need to disclose the information.
Absolutely.
Okay,
That's the change, that would be for D.
okay, and
then
then
I
how it
raise
is
my
done is the form.
And how it's done is the form, or how it's done
The
is.
form is not a part of the
So it's not a
policy.
part of discussion.
No.
Okay. So all in favor of having language to say acknowledging disclosure, hand vote.
Yeah.
Just acknowledging disclosure.
The policy stays the same and we're just acknowledging disclosure of relationship. Christina, where's your hand? Up or down?
My hand is up, my hand is up.
Okay.
You wanna raise your hand for
Good night,
me?
Allison. What about your cake, Allison?
Raise your hand, please.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with Christina.
What?
Hands are down here, I'm looking.
What is it?
Down.
For language to acknowledge disclosure of relationship.
Is it without any change?
It stays the same.
Stays the same, you just add on the part about acknowledging relationship.
We talking about the old policy. Say-
The old policy is staying the same,
Uh-huh.
Add this-
we're adding disclosure of relationship.
Number 2,
What you mean then?
No, just,
That the board
if you're
members-
being hired, you have to say, I am the niece of
Oh.
Jackie Jordan, acknowledging that
But
you have
to
a,
sign something?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what was C?
That'll be a policy, that'll be procedure, they'll decide
Yes.
that. We're just saying that that
C is keep it the same. No
potential
changes.
new hires will have to acknowledge relationship.
Why is, okay, I have a question. Why is not the board member acknowledging the
The board member
relationship?
has to do, the board member can do it too.
Can or must?
Well, if there's
Shall.
gonna be, shall,
Okay? 'Cause
must, shall.
That's,
Okay,
that's
my,
it.
my,
That's
my
key.
answer is still C. Same, no change.
Okay, Ms. Jordan, C, same, no changes. Okay, so we have a 6 to 2. Oh, no, there's 9 of us now.
And it
Oh,
is-
that's right, she didn't vote, she didn't raise her hand. Okay,
She did vote, but we had to start over.
This is-
She had to go.
Consensus to move on.
so 8 to 2, that there is acknowledgement of relationship.
Right, next.
The
What's the numbers on that?
2
as in the
colon
sample
90.
form.
And then the next one that is 2 colon 90E was a sample of what the form could look like.
No, I was, excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't make myself clear. I was saying, what was the vote on the,
8 for the, adding the acknowledgement, 6 for adding the, thank you for counting, 6 for adding the acknowledgement, 2 for not adding, for not making any changes.
okay, thank you.
Okay, the others aren't gonna be this hard. Because the form was the biggest problem with this whole thing. Okay, board policy 2 colon 100, board member conflict of interest. And for this policy, the one thing that I saw for discussion in here is typed in red. No board member shall one, have beneficial interest directly or indirectly in any contract, work, or business of district unless permitted by state or federal law. 2, solicit or accept gratuities, favors, or anything of monetary value from contractors, potential contractors, or parties to agreement or contracts with the district. And the portion in red says including employees. So that was the one thing of change that I saw on there, would be gifting from employees to a board member. That was my thought. Did anyone have any questions, concerns, disagree?
Nope, next.
Dr. Dupay?
Yes,
2:100.
I'm listening.
Any discussion from you on 2:100?
No, I'm curious to know what other board members think.
Anyone else have any?
It's no problem.
You're one person.
They think the same.
Okay.
Fine. Fine.
Okay,
Fine.
all right.
Must miss another question.
Consensus for policy 2:100, board member conflict of interest,
Yes.
with the inclusion of, including employees as a part of not accepting anything that would construe a conflict of interest. Can we have a roll call?
You gonna show it?
Dr. Mackey,
Yes.
Dr. Patterson,
Yes.
Ms. Dupay,
Christina?
Did you hear me?
No.
Oh, I said yes.
Ms. Elmore Perkins,
Yes.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Ms. Jordan,
I'm sorry. She had EBG's down there. I think she said yes.
Ms. Jordan?
Yes, that's fine.
Oh, I didn't hear you. We weren't sure if you said something.
Ms. McDaniel.
Ms. Margaret?
Yes.
That's your vote? Okay.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Unanimous. And the vote?
9.
8. Ms. McCray left, so we're with 8.
Yes. 8 yes. 0 no.
Okay, the consensus vote is 8 yes, 0 no. To accept the policy with the inclusion of including employees. I have no idea if I left my packet. Okay, policy 2:105, ethics and gift bans. For this policy, number 2, no board member or employee shall intentionally use any district property or resources or parties to agreement or contract with the district in connection with any political activity. So just adding to the fact that not only using property or resources, but also not using anyone who is contracted with the district to support a campaign. That was the one change. I did have a question, and this is from prior board, because I don't know about this. It says travel expenses for meeting to discuss business. So the following are exceptions to the ban, and it says travel expenses for meeting to discuss business. I'm not understanding if that was part of the policy or not.
Or getting expenses from
Yeah,
the following.
I saw them
It is a it's a press policy.
that is a press policy. Okay, that's what I was trying to find out. I was like,
I could have been getting some money for some folks to go somewhere.
okay, and then my other question. Oh, you know what, the next question, Mr. Ricker answered the other question. So really, the only thing for this policy is the portion in red. I lost my place.
more parties. Do you want me to read it?
Yes.
No board member or employee shall intentionally use any district property or resources or parties to agreements or contracts with the district in connection with any political activity. And the part in red is, or parties to agreements or contracts with the district.
So just making sure that we don't have a party and call ABM to our house to do the cleanup is pretty much what that is equivalent to. Okay. All right. Yeah. Remember said, had a recommendation. Okay.
So I have a concern with adding, because I'm not sure I'm quite understanding it, and when you change a press policy, then they won't send, then they don't update it for you. Like that was the big thing about press, is they send updates, but they're not gonna send updates with our red line changes.
But if you send it to press and they agree to it, they will individualize policies that help support your board's specific needs. And that's something I did call about and ask, and the reason that I asked about it was because in the training that I looked at, I did the IASB training, and it said that you can have and write up policies that fit specifically for some need of your district.
So what does the red part mean? That's the part I'm not understanding.
So if I'm having a party and I ask the supervisor of ABM if they want to come to my house and clean up my house and my party, I'm using district resources. But resources, a lot of times people will think of things, you know, a book, a computer, versus someone who you're contracted with.
What about tables and chairs and things like that, or the district truck?
That's a resource, that's district property. I mean, if you have an organization.
If you're in a party and you want to borrow tables and chairs for your party,
Who's keeping up with that?
probably the maintenance department.
But that's happened, I'm just.
Yeah,
sure
and but that shouldn't happen, and that's what that was the regular part of the policy. That's part of press's policy. The only thing that I added is that we're using contractors
I think that the policy in which you're addressing right now is concerning political activity.
Yeah, this is for political.
She's just talking about, say, if you're having a party at your house.
But I mean, if I'm having a political party at my house.
No, I'm not
yeah.
saying
I'm
political,
not talking.
non-political,
Okay,
non-political. That's what she's talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
well, if it's non-political,
Anniversary party.
I would say it's the same thing.
I don't think so.
Well, this one is talking, well, this portion of the policy is about the politics, about
Political.
political.
Right.
So I'm having a political rally, I shouldn't be coming to get school district things to use at my political rally. I shouldn't be using any contractors from the
That's
district.
clear, that's
So
clear.
that's all,
clear.
that is the only part I really
Yeah, that's clear.
had some concerns about, because that did happen. So that was my biggest concern, that that shouldn't have happened, and that we need to just kind of address it. So this would be one where, even if we approve it, if press says they won't cover us, then we're not gonna do it.
Oh, no,
No, because I know what you're saying.
I just want to make sure it gets updated, because
Right,
back in the day when we had to do it by hand, it was a long.
right. No, at the end of this, I was going to say, you know, that any changes we would have press to look at and approve, that these would go along with approval, so that, unfortunately, our next meeting is Monday. So in our,
This is none of the, none of these are on the agenda.
okay, so this will be for our October meeting, and that gives press a chance to look at it, say yes or no, or form the wording in there. Right, and then they would form it in theirs and then bring it back to us.
But in 2, doesn't that already specifically say you don't need that or parties agreement or contracts? Seems to me.
Well,
No board member or employee shall intentionally use any district property or resources in connection with any political activities.
but when you look, people will look at resources as things, not as,
How they are looking at resources really doesn't have anything to do. I mean,
if you go and use your lawyer, the district school lawyer, to help with your
But that's a
political
resource.
campaign, if you're using the lawyer, that is a contracted party of the district.
It's a resource.
So,
It's all resources. It all falls, any contract, that's a resource. That's what we use to clean up.
but, well,
I don't think it needs to be changed. I
I
think
don't
it,
either.
Me neither.
okay,
I
move
think
on,
it covers it.
move on. I don't think it covers it when somebody did it.
Huh?
I don't think it's covered, or it's clear someone did it.
I would share that, as I went through these policies, I don't think there are many changes at all. I think the policies just need to be enforced.
Right.
That's the difference.
I
There
agree.
you go.
I agree with
That's
that.
what it is.
That's
The
right.
enforcement of
Okay.
the policy.
Right.
See, and that's what we need to,
Well, and
That's right.
clarification.
yes, but I mean, just true disclosure, what we need to do is that, what are the consequences? Because we have a lot of policies, but there's no consequence
That's right.
that goes along with it.
Exactly.
And
Right.
so, in order to enforce something, we need to add some consequences, that this board member not just be censured, but, be brought to
Maybe that
the
just needs
the
to be
state
a new
election board
policy.
to,
Maybe a new policy.
Or
that there will
clarification.
be enforcement of all board policies.
But there also needs to be clarification, because obviously this policy is here, it's written, but
But
someone chose to do this anyway.
They just chose to do
They
that.
just, right, they just chose to do it.
But you
It's
have to
there.
clarify.
That's legal.
Yeah.
They write things so ambiguous that bottom line is that you can.
Policies are always general.
Yeah, and so what we have to do is, once again, we have to come together as a board and say,
Yeah.
we're responsible for governing ourselves.
You're
And
right.
so, we need to come
Absolutely.
together and say, we're gonna enforce these policies. Bottom line is that, listen, you're censored, you're not going to any more meetings, you're not going anywhere until you correct your behavior. But we need to put some teeth into the stuff, and that's what the problem
So-
comes is that
so
we
you-
let people get away with stuff, and then they think it's okay.
So you could take the policy, you could write another policy that you can enforce them, or you could take the policy and add a procedure, just like you added that procedure to,
The form.
the form, okay, you added that form. Now, if you wanna do something with this one, you say, anybody who violates this policy, this is what's gonna happen. That's a procedure. That's
Right.
not part of the policy.
That's right.
Okay,
The policy is the value, the expectation.
but as a board member stating that they know policy to then go and, you know,
Well,
But they chose
Say-
to do.
then you
Well,
no,
call,
they didn't think that was wrong.
you call the press police.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
Okay.
we, you know, we assemble the tribunal.
Okay, and that's why,
You know,
this is why I'm bringing it up,
sometimes
because
be
they,
excommunicated, you know.
I'm bringing them up because of what I saw outside and
But
like,
it was just, it was like I said, once again, it's the enforcement of policy. That's what we lack it. We lack in enforcement. And here, here we
Just
go.
like the organization.
Yeah, we, Dr. Carmen,
well, that's all you're
we lack, I saw, we lack the enforcement or just basically really, you know, coming down and say, hey, listen, this is what it is. And, you know, the board needs to stand together and then we move forward and just stop a bunch of nonsense.
You don't get to write
Well, you know, and then-
self-receipts.
Well, and
You
then,
don't get to write 23 self-receipts.
No.
The chief, you say, sure.
No, you
No.
don't get to write 23 self-receipts.
No,
right, and that's why these were brought up for discussion.
yeah.
Right.
And this is a form of discussion. It's nothing in, it's just that these things, when I look from the outside in, these were things that needed to be cleared up, that didn't,
You know that horse left the barn already.
yeah. But that's why we're here. It's like, well, you know, this is something that we need to talk about as a board when we change over, and we do.
Well, we could,
Next.
we could redefine and define and define everything and make these even longer and longer. But
But you,
this
but,
has an enforcement attached to the policy.
And if you don't enforce, it doesn't matter how many details you have in it.
Yeah.
right, and the, you know, that's part of the discussion, is to look at the policy, understand, make sure everybody has the understanding of the wording, not misconstruing, overreading, reading into, assuming, and then the other portion is us sticking by it and following the policies and governing ourselves, saying, okay, we gotta stop for a minute, take a break, this happened, what's next? We can't ever make a decision on what we're gonna do, because you never know.
There are definition attached to this, talking about political activity, prohibited source means, and define gift means.
So, for policy 2:105, consensus. The roll call for that?
Ms. Dupay,
Come back.
Ms. Elmore Perkins,
Leave as is.
Ms. Jordan,
No changes.
Ms. Howard,
No changes.
Mr. Mosby,
No change.
Dr. Peterson,
Status quo.
Dr. Mackey,
No changes.
and Ms. McDaniel,
Leave it the same.
and Ms. Dupay.
No changes.
Okay.
Okay, next policy, policy 2:12,